in our panel discussion titled Payment Fraud Protection Facing Up to the Challenge. And our esteemed panelists bring a wealth of expertise and experience and insight in this great conversation. So look forward for the fabulous panel discussion happening right here, right now on the stage. Our esteemed panelists, I'll call one by one. We're very delighted and we are really thrilled to hear it from there because I think this is one of the most anticipated topic. So let's start with welcoming Mr. Manish Agrawal, Executive VP and Head Credit Intelligence Control, HDFC Bank. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? I'll request you to kindly join us on the stage and be seated as you see your face over there on the screens. And next coming up on the panel is Anish Chowdhary, Founding Executive and CBO, Indian Bank's Digital Infrastructure Company. Can we welcome with a huge round of applause? Joining this expertise panel is Anita Kulshrestha, General Manager, Transaction Banking, SBI. Can we have a huge round of applause? Well, let's look forward for an absolutely informative session out here. Requesting and calling Mr. Chandan, Head-RCU, FRM&TM, Utkarsh Small Finance Bank. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Next joining on the stage is Damodaran, Chambath, CRO, Federal Bank. Can we have a huge round of applause for him as well? Next is joining Pankaj Mohta. He is Head Fraud Risk Prevention and Strategy, SMFG India Credit. Can we have a huge round of applause? And of course, how can this ship sail without our captain? So the moderator of this fabulous panel is Mr. Ashish, Chandak, industry speaker and a leader. Can we have a huge round of applause as he joins us on the stage? Well, here it is, over to you. I'll request everybody to be seated and let's get going with this great, much anticipated panel out here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You made my job much easier, because whatever opening notes I had prepared for myself, setting the context and all, has been done by you beautifully. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Couldn't have been set better, the context set better than what she's done already for all of us. We are from the industry, all of us understand it very well, the importance of the topic. The numbers, she's already rattled out, the Indian numbers as well as the global numbers. So the ball is already set to roll. I have with me a power-packed panel, all industry leaders in the space across the entire spectrum of the BFSI industry, if I may call it. You have the largest PSU bank, you have the largest private sector bank, you have a small finance bank represented over there, represented from NBFC also. And last but not the least, from the solutioning provider also, we have person from IBDIC. So to that extent, and when we get into the discussion, we'll realize as to what wealth of knowledge, experience, all of these speakers bring to the table. The way we've planned out this discussion, I would call it a discussion because there are a lot of things that we need to unravel, starting right from and we'll just warm up a bit saying what payment frauds are we talking about. So, setting the context in a more detailed manner, but that would be a brief aspect part of it because all of you understand that very well. Having understood the payment frauds briefly, we'll get into what sort of practical challenges these people are facing on a day in, day out basis in their work. So, because unless until we realize what our challenges are, how are we going to find the solutions for the same? So we'll talk of some bit on the challenges that we face on a day in, day out basis. Some of you would talk of those challenges. And then we will get into the meaty aspect part of the panel discussion. By then, all of you would have also settled in. Your coffees would have started kicking. So to that extent, your brains will all be working and all. You would all have got warmed up. We'll talk of the solutions aspect part of it. Some of the solutions many of you would have already implemented or would be in the process of implementing on the ground. Would like to hear more from you on those solutions aspect part of it. Some of the solutions you may want some of the tech service providers who are there in this audience to work with you to provide you solutions for some of the problems, correct? So we should ask for that as well. And last but not the least, what we are looking for is a spirit of collaboration and innovation. Because to my mind, the demon that we are talking of, the payment fraud, and as the moderator earlier talked of, or as the host earlier talked of, that the rogue guys are becoming smarter by the day. And therefore, to that extent, the BFSIs will have to put their hands together to make this happen. If we can't catch them, we'll have to be at least, catching them is the least aspect part of it. We'll have to be at least along with them if we are not ahead of them. So to that extent, we'll have to join forces. Collaboration and innovation would be the mantra when we talk of solutioning aspect part of it. But to set the context, let me open it up now to our panelists. And who better than ladies first, the only lady on the panel from that perspective, representing the largest public sector bank in the country. Anita ma'am, payment fraud, while this audience knows it all about, but who better than you to talk about it from the banking perspective, as to you've seen it all evolve over a period of time, how things have changed, how digitalization came in, and what sort of new challenges that you started facing, and we'll still restrict ourselves only to the digital payment frauds and the challenges aspect only.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So it's an interesting topic that we have been we are discussing here today. So if we remember, we started with the forced check payments being done in maybe some 5-10 years ago. And from there, we started facing ATM-related frauds. And those are the frauds of the bygone era, because we are able to have some solution in terms of having multi-factor authentication and PPS system for check payments, and that number of transactions also have declined. So now for today's times, we are facing the challenge of digital payment frauds. So that's the problem we are all facing, whether be it a big bank, small bank, or even a small NBFC, or anybody for that matter. And these problems are more related to mule accounts these days. And digital arrest was happening a few months ago on large scale. That has been controlled. So the challenge is mostly about the large number of large number of such transactions. Then social engineering remains the fraud, which is difficult to control because we have a vast audience, vast customer base which need to be educated, which need to be aware. So spreading awareness remains our topic here. But the fraud which is happening through social engineering, their nature is changing. Earlier it was happening through phishing, wishing, links. Now then again, digital arrest came in, and latest being the purchase of the mule accounts. The authorized push payments were also happening and still happening through social engineering. So the main reason of having such multiple frauds is being the fraudsters are ahead of us, and we have to find the solution ahead of them.
Thanks, ma'am. Manish, how about you, Malam? Is it similar or something different that you're facing?
I think Anita ji has covered a lot. So good morning, everyone. So the reality is the person who collaborate are the fraudsters. In fact, yesterday I was in one of the Asia Pacific webinar, and there were some law enforcement agency, including Interpol. They were talking about the similar thing. So globally, it's a common phenomena. So whatever in terms of a modus operandi we are listening, I think it is separate across. They are the one who collaborate better. They are the one who understand the modus operandi better and implement in every new geographies. Two things I think it's very, very important. First of all, the fraudster does not differentiate between the caste and the creed, the geography or anything. Okay, they are applicable across the world, across the universe. While we're talking so much of a fraud, it's important to understand in the context of the kind of volumes that we have. If we look at the Indian diaspora, after the advent of an UPI, on a monthly basis, and I'm talking only the volume, means count of transaction, India, the kind of volume that we have is approximately 18 billion plus transactions are happening in the banking ecosystem. Okay, we are a 1.4 billion country, so every person is doing at least 12 transactions in a month. This is the scale where we have reached. Okay. Out of that, more than 99% of the transactions are digital in nature. No country in the world has seen these kind of a perspective. Entire world's more than 47% of a digital transaction. So let's say if the 100 digital transactions are happening across the world, the 47% is coming in only from the India. So this is the scale and the digital public infrastructure that the country has created. As they have created these many things, definitely there are people who want to exploit it. So why we will dwell on the solution, and I think the regulator has come up very categorically, couple of the new circulars, they have tried to differentiate, and we may talk later on the cyber enabled and a cyber dependent definition in terms of a fraud. But as a percentage or the basis points as you calculate, it may not be higher, but it is very important that to keep the customer's trust and have this chariot moving, it is very important that the fraud piece is contained, okay? And there are technology solutions. I'm sure that we're going to talk about it. What we are missing, and I think that's the point which you also touched upon and ma'am also touched upon, is the right collaboration, okay? A collaboration not only informal, but only in the form of a something which comes from the statute, okay? So I think that's where...
Perfect, Manish. You've brought me to the right point to take it next step. But before we go on to that next step, very important to get the perspective from the NBFC side also. Because we've heard the bankers talking, they more talk from a payment perspective. But is there something beyond this also? Because payment comes much later in the cycle, correct, of the customer life cycle, if I may call it, with any of these institutions. So as an NBFC, maybe you can talk of, coming from SMFG, Chandan, right? So you can talk of where do you see these frauds emanating from? What is your perspective that you'd like to share on the frauds aspect?
First of all, good morning, audience. Now, one thing, with NBFC, people mostly confused, right? That it is not linked to payment. We are highly linked to payment. The problem with NBFC is that once the money is out, it is out. Unlike credit card, where you can still have a lot of transactions, right? Organized data set. And you can monitor the data. This is not true for NBFC. Once we boarded, it is very tough to get the money from the fraudsters, right? Now the real challenge today, if you'll see, we want to have a real-time disbursement, okay? And we are talking about customer experience. Now the better the customer experience we want to have, probably we need to have some low rules set to identify the fraud. Now what is happening over here, the rules which you are setting can go for a toss, because always the fraud modules will have a high false positives, because you are either working on some bucketing or you want to working on some outliers. Now, to the top of it, customer awareness is also an issue. As being pointed out, there are a lot of digital arrest we are talking about, right? There are a lot of data which is readily available, and those data are getting exploited to build in synthetic IDs, ID fakes. And with the NBFC, the real problem, if we want to control the payment fraud, we have to control whether we are lending to the right person or not. So identification is the critical piece. Now to the top of it, if you see, we are talking about a lot of collaboration. But collaboration, I think today, and to be honest, we are talking about from last 20 years. And even I've seen the collaboration between the regulator entities is missing. DNBS is not sharing data with DBS, Department of Banking Supervision. We are, and people should be cognizant of the fact that the customer base is same. But still, there are disparity between the regulatory entities itself. Now, in terms of identification also, when we are talking about, there are a lot of tools available, okay? We talk about, real time through CKYC, give customer experience, no OTP validation, nothing. But those can be exploited in terms of deepfake. A minute change in your this tool injection in your camera can make it believe that the person is the same. I can steal your identity in real time. Okay, there's no any OTP over KFC validation. Second, we are talking about lot of Aadhaar authentication. Are we sure that the data which is coming from the Aadhaar is the right one? I've seen a couple of instances where the Aadhaar system itself is, the data is incorrect. Probably you might have also heard of it, and there are a lot of news around it. So even with the vKYC tool, we are talking about these deepfake injections, which can easily be built in, right? If people are, and you must have heard of a lot of deepfake fraud happening in other countries, especially Indonesia. But that could be happening with us also, and we might not be even aware of it. So these are the real challenges which I can see, and if can be controlled, I think we can probably contain such frauds. And as pointed out by Anita ma'am, like mule accounts, that is also a real challenge. I think industry should work on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Pankaj. So you've touched on both aspects, defining the frauds that you see from an NBFC perspective, as well as the challenges that you face on a day in, day out. Along the same lines, because you've now started touching on the challenges aspect part of it, I would now reach out to our other panelists also. Damodaran, coming from, again, a private sector bank, they have defined the fraud aspect part of it. What are the challenges? We know what the problems are, but there are practical challenges on the ground that you would be facing as a CRO day in, day out basis. What are those practical challenges? If you can put that also briefly, that would help to create solutions for those challenges.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we have started speaking of challenges, and I will just add to that. We have told about the huge volumes, the unique, position we are in, the requirement of financial inclusion, DBT, everything. Each and every Indian is having a bank account. That is volume-related challenges related to UPI. It was a revolution. But it is being exploited by fraudsters. The basic issue is we have a digital explosion, and the tools are there with each and every Indian. But are our customer public awareness level anywhere near to using it? It is very, customer awareness is very less. We know that. So it is getting exploited. And again, you can give a lot of solutions, technology-based solutions, but on what it will work on? You need accurate data. You need accurate data for profiling of the customer. So that bankers and those who are onboarding, responsible for onboarding, will have to look at it. There are RBI guidelines. RBI is actually balancing both risk and the need of the country. But at the same time, we need to take RBI guidelines as a baseline. We cannot limit our onboarding practices to the baseline. We will have to enhance it. And again, lot of frauds, actually fraudsters are one step ahead of us. We need to admit it. When we find out one gap and plug it, there are n number of gaps that fraudsters are opening. So we need to be agile. We need to understand. For that, there should be data sharing, is it not? What currently is happening is, if you identify that one account is fraud in one bank, you are blocking it at a bank level. But is it happening at an industry level? Whether you have a forum to do that on a, if not real time, at least a T+1 basis. It's a big challenge. Otherwise, one person, here we have a number of banks, is it not? There are a lot of banks nearby. So you can very well open account in another bank. Another case is, sale of KYC. Not even uneducated people, even those who are educated, say, or engineering, those who are studying in engineering colleges and all, I'm just taking an example, please don't get offended. They are selling their KYC documents. What banks will do actually? It's very difficult because KYC documents are pakka. Aadhaar, even can you base Aadhaar? There are manipulations in Aadhaar data as well. It's a reality. So it's very difficult. The atmosphere is charged. Fraudsters are finding out new ways, but accurate data is a challenge. Tools, of course, you will be able to bring out the tools, but again, there also we need to share this information, the new methodologies of frauds, and brace up for those new kind of things, and our tools also should be agile to work on that.
Brilliant, Damodaran. You made some very pertinent points over there with respect to some of the challenges, and you forcing me getting into the solutions aspect. But before, thoda sa ek aur we'll get one more perspective, because the new kid on the block, the small finance banks, who have the ambitions to turn into a scheduled commercial bank sooner than later, are also there. And are we leaving that door open for these fraudsters to come in? We've talked of the PSU banks, we've talked of the private sector banks, we've talked of the NBFCs, but this new important kid on the block, the small finance banks, let's hear from them as well as to, are there challenges that they've already started seeing? Because these are the challenges which will grow further into a scheduled commercial bank as they transition.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ashish, for giving the opportunity. And I think my fellow panelists have already covered most of the things. However, I'll just add a few aspects of this. Here, all of us, there are multiple stakeholders. The banks, the fraudsters, the members of the public, could be a customer, could be non-customer, the regulator as well as the statutory authorities, which is, and one more aspect if I may add, is the judiciary. In all this fraud that we do, I think we spoke about a lot of modus operandis, a lot of limitations. I accept all those, and I think we will always have challenges, resources, and things are always falls less from the expectation. That's the truth of the life. But what we, I observed is we are not doing the basics right, the fundamentals correctly. As my again panelist said that there are proper guidelines. I think it's very easy to look at other side that there is something lacking, any aspect, okay? But I think the regulatory, the environment is evolving continuously, and there's a challenge, and the fraudsters are always one step ahead because they don't have boundaries to follow or the rules to take care of. We as an industry or regulator we have our limitations. So our movements are slow, no doubt about as a stakeholder in the industry. However, let me tell you, the regulators and the way I see it, all the players, continuous advisories and the regulations or directions. So they are very good to my mind. Can it be done better? Yes, it can be done better. And I think Manish touched about collaboration first itself, and that's the truth of the life, however we deny. Two things that works in the favor of the fraudsters, Ashish, is they don't have boundaries to follow. They don't have laws to follow. We have to, okay? We have to take care of the privacy of everybody, data secrecy and everything. They don't have to bother about it. They do collaborate huge. I mean, people who are in the fraud industry, they would have seen, it started with the checkbox, breaking in to the scheming of the cards, to the ATMs, to the, hacking into the mobile devices. Today, after hacking all this, checkboxes to the card, to the laptops, they have moved to hacking of the mind. That's what social engineering is all about. Today, all the mule that we're talking about is nothing but social engineering. And coming to this point, I will put it into 4 quadrants. The fraudsters use threat and lure, and the people, the members of public, fall for the greed and fear. That's the easy thing. And it has gone to a level whereby we have kept the ethics part of it away. I mean, as we were talking about before Ashish called me, I got a call again as a fraud. So I think nobody's away from that. So Truecaller gave me that it's a fraud. Anyway, so I mean, I'll just give 10 seconds I'll take. I was talking to somebody on the online job fraud, and I said, somebody was justifying, what is wrong in it if I keep on doing rating. Okay? So I have to just rate. And I said, why would you rate that? So finally, the person accepted that I am rating something which I have never consumed as a service, but that person was okay to rate just for the money. What I mean to say is the ethics was missing. It is incorrect, inappropriate. I think somewhere we have to follow that. To my mind, the basics has to be done correctly, starting from onboarding of customer to our approach to life. The greed has to be managed and the fear has to be taken care of. Yeah,
Brilliant.
that's the
Chandan.
problem.
Brilliant. So, guys, it's not all this bleaky that we've all painted it out to be. You would all be thinking, Friday morning, first thing, we've not even had our cup of tea, coffee properly. And what these bankers and all are doing here is painting such a bleaky picture. Is it all doomsday scenario? Sorry, it is not. That's where we have a beacon of light. And Anish, I come to you now. Maybe the halo is also properly positioned because we look to you. Anish comes from IBDIC, the Indian Bank's digital infrastructure company. The entity created by the banks for the banks from a solutioning perspective. And that is where we talked of, when I talked of collaboration, when I talked of innovation. I'll open it up now to Anish to talk of some of the solutions. And we'll also go around the panel talking of solutions with them, because without solutioning, all these problems that we've talked of is of no value. So Anish, why don't you educate us or tell the audience about, you've heard of all the challenges, of all the problems. From looking it from your side, what are the type of solutions from a collaborative perspective, from an innovation perspective that can be brought to the table, that are being brought to the table? And maybe we can dwell further on it with the other bankers also.
Sure, I think thanks for the wonderful inputs by this August panel, and I think they've summed up the entire landscape very well. Now, if I look at fraud, there are three ways to cut the cake. One is when you are having proactive measures to prevent fraud. The second is when you do real-time detection so as to stop the money from going out. And the third is the reactive measures that you put in place. Now, each of these will require different kinds of strategies and nuances. But if I may go a little 5,000 feet above and look at what are three key pillars I feel and the way the industry is moving, some of the global best practices, how regulators and the government are looking at things, I think there are three dimensions out here. One, collaboration. I think that's a common theme everybody touched about. The second, how do you look at analytics in a very different lens? Because there's always this risk of death by data. We are actually overflowing with data. And the third angle is something that we are missing in the Indian conversation, I would say, is while we are talking about awareness, but awareness is not a pill that you can throw at people. It has to be embedded with behavioral science. And therefore, if I just touch upon these three dimensions quickly, collaboration is something that India is now building as its own USP. I remember when I was doing my MBA, etc., we used to thrive on this concept of jugaad innovation. But no longer is jugaad required because we are not as resource poor as a country. In fact, we have created our own models, which is the digital public infrastructure model as a country. We have so many examples of success stories, UPI itself being one. And now that it's a big success, it's also creating its own set of challenges which the industry would solve. Now the thing is, when we talk about DPI, the classic approach is a public-private partnership model, number one. So look at what happened with Operation Sindoor. We looked at the success of Operation Sindoor was not just one forces fighting it out. It was an integrated command structure where you had the army, you had the navy, you had the air force fighting it together. Fraud is a similar terrorist which has to be encountered by this collaboration. Now, what is the collaboration requiring? It's not just PSUs, private sector, small finance banks, NBFCs. You have cooperative banks. So we have 9,000 financial institutions purely if I talk about banking and the NBFC sector. You have insurance companies. Let's not forget that. You have payment aggregators. If you take a holistic 360-degree view, the question is we have identifiers as KYC, etc. But if I create a 360-degree profile of an individual and create a risk profile of that person, and I'm real-time able to classify basis the three strategies I spoke about, you can build very strong proactive defense mechanisms to eliminate a lot of fraud from the first place itself. Then it comes to real-time detection. Now the challenge is we have three kinds of models at play out there. Already there's a lot of great initiative happening. Let's say a mule hunter is there. We have I4C, the digital intelligence platform from DOT, the revoked mobile number registration list. A lot of work is happening on that front. But let me again say that each of these different initiatives, including the bespoke FRM models, etc., that the banks are building, or even for that matter from a loan account perspective, whatever things that NBFCs and banks are doing, it's important for all of these to come together at one place in a data safe, data private manner. Now to make that happen, we need innovation. What do I mean by innovation? Today we have federated models that can be deployed across industries within a collaborative manner, in a public-private collaborative manner. So if you do such mechanisms, you can still protect a lot of data and ensure that only on a need-to-know basis, the relevant risks are shared and not data. The third aspect that I often hear in conversations is we cannot have statutory implants on day one. RegTech is something that is constantly keeping pace with tech and challenges. We have to respect the fact that the regulator in India is doing a wonderful job across industries, not just RBI, but all the regulators, in terms of encouraging statute, but at the same time bringing in innovation. Now, the balance can only translate into a statute when a particular concept has been tried out and successful at a certain level. So we will have to allow as industries to come together on our own first. Test, deploy, try out what's working, what's not working. And then I'm sure the regulators would be willing to, put their money on it. The question is the industry ready to experiment? Are people willing to come together and say, it's not just about following Circular 7 or Master Directive A. We will take our initiative on our own, take the lead, and then let it percolate. So we need pioneers, not only in business innovation, but also in fraud management, because if we don't solve for fraud, there is no business.
Brilliant. So is the industry ready to take that step of collaboration? That's the point. Let's bring in the industry experts over there. Anita ma'am, because if industry has to be ready, between SBI and HDFC, if they take care of it, 60-70% of the job is done, right? So let's talk from SBI's perspective as to what sort of efforts being made by the government, by the regulator, along with SBI, or SBI doing it amongst its fraternity, either PSU banks or with other banks also. Would like to hear more on the collaboration aspect part of it, on solutioning.
Yeah, so context has been set very well by Mr. Anish about the solutioning part, and SBI being the largest bank handling the maximum volume of transactions every day. In fact, they are around 20 billion transactions which go through every month, and we have to sift through them and look for the needle in the haystack that what is there which we need our attention. But then a reaction after the incident has happened is only a regulatory way of doing it, or maybe the assisting the government or the LEAs to hunt down these fraudsters and the scamsters. But for the bank for any financial institution to protect its commercial interest, it has to have some proactive, predictive risk management. And that is where the anybody, any FI has to upgrade its technology to the fullest, take advantage of so many new fintechs which are coming up with solutioning part. APIs are being rolled out by the banks to integrate and use their very unique tools. So what I feel is that when we are talking about collaboration, so first, as he has pointed out, we should look inside ourselves. So like he was mentioning about, my co-panelist was mentioning about the people are opening accounts in other banks. But what about our own branches? One branch is refusing the account, and then one branch is proactive and they are taking care with their cautionary. So we should have our own registry in place in first place. We should start experimenting with that. How do we ring fence our customers around that fraudsters' data? if there is any beneficiary being added from that fraudsters list. So that is a good indicator. So all those kinds of solutions can be inbuilt within the organization before we go out and collaborate with other banks. Maybe we have some experience to share with others. Maybe we can really onboard people onto those solutions once we are very sure about our solution. Besides, the solutioning is not a one-time fix. It has to evolve. And evolution is needed because the fraudsters are marching much ahead. They are using like fraud as a service solutions for doing the frauds. And the banks and the financial sector has to evolve accordingly. We have been really enforcing, we have been really paying more attention to the regulatory audits and all those guidelines, but those are baselines only and they are not able to prevent us. We have to stop reacting and start preventing. There are many things which can be done through technology like distribution, ledger technology, blockchain, which we popularly call, and that is what which can prevent. But at the same time, when we are thinking in terms of changing the technology, for the existing technology also we have many solutions available in the landscape of fraud and the prevention technologies also. These are something which are being used by people for identifying the IP addresses, whether the fraudster is sitting close to us or he's doing it from abroad, or we can also monitor it like delay tactics. And one thing which I really feel necessary now looking at this is velocity checks, because even it is no longer a matter of big amounts. The layering is happening in terms of very small amounts, and we cannot say the fraud is happening for a big amount and then we should look for only all the red flags we create. Multiple red flags are created and they go obsolete within no time. So we have to evolve in those respects also and do the sharing in such matters.
Thanks. Yeah, so you talked of some of the interesting solutions. I'll pick it up with Manish on the same line, because some of the things that she's talked of, is it all possible in real time? Are there solutions available which can help me do all of this without compromising on the customer experience? Because at the end of the day, all of us are in the industry for the benefit of the customer. So without compromising the customer experience, how can we do some of these checks either at the onboarding stage or at the transaction stage on a real-time basis, not even near real-time? So are you working with some solutions or have worked out some such mechanisms?
So I think my co-panelists have covered many items and the solution is also comprehended. First, as Anish stated, I would put it in a simple 3 words, ABC, from a solution perspective. And A stands for awareness, B stands for behavioral biometrics or the behavioral understanding, and C stands for the collaboration. I think this is the 3 themes that all of us are talking. The good point is, I think there is no, the level of awareness amongst the risk professional about the problem is definitely at a very high scale now. So the acceptance is already there, okay? And if we have such a large audience here, which means that there is an acceptance of a problem. Because if you have to solve anything, first you have to accept that there is a problem. Second thing is the solution. And when you talk about the solution, I don't see technology as a challenge. Whatever you talked, what is possible in a near real time, I think this is nothing. Okay, 100x of this is possible. So technology is not an issue. Okay, the kind of digital public infrastructure the country has created and the time that it has taken to create, okay, is unbelievable, unprecedented. So technology is definitely not an issue. The lag time, where the customer experience comes in, that's not an issue. What is an issue? We are talking so much, but what we are not able to do is an execute. Okay. In fact, IBDIC have been part of the Harbinger program. RBI Hub is working separately. We were part of one committee RBI had constituted for creating another form of a digital public infrastructure. Today, the biggest lacuna, and whether it's about the assets or the payment, the biggest lacuna that we have is a bank as an issuer knows about the customer. They do a lot of profiling. Everything is known for them. What we do not know, neither the customer knows, the person to whom he is making the payment, what are his antecedent and the cadence. And that is where this entire gap is coming in. That can be collaborated only in a two-way. From a technical perspective, one, we need to have a suspect registry for which the work has already been started. One kind of a pilot has already been done by the I4C. The second one, I'm aware, I'm also part of that committee where RBI Hub is creating another form of a DPI to give it a formal shape. And second particular item is, how do you get a real-time scoring in a lot of other countries? If you read about UK has done to a very large extent. The Singapore has created something on these lines. In fact, Indonesia is in talks. We also have comprehended what needs to be done. It's a question of probably we need a speed, and I think that's where I keep pushing Anish that when are you guys getting on it? So that's where I would want to put it.
Perfect. So you've alluded to Anish, and I'll bring it back to Anish therefore, saying he's talked of collaboration, he's talked of a lot of things which are happening, execution being the key, saying that we've talked a lot in various forums, in various, bits and pieces. How can we get it all together? Who's going to drive all of that together? Are there some steps being taken already, like you've done it on the other sides of trade and all? Would want to hear more on the payment fraud industry side as to what are the steps being taken to bring this collaboration about.
Sure. Without delving too much about what we are doing per se as a platform, but yeah, I think talking about execution, a lot of steps are happening. And yes, execution is critical because the pace at which everything is growing, it's important to double down our efforts on execution. So 2-3 aspects to it. I think one, from the government side or various other DPI sides, there are a lot of suspect registries, etc., being created. I think one area where there's a lot of need, and which is where Manish was alluding to, the models that we are also building, our focus is to see that you create very single orchestration layers, because imagine there are 5 other DPIs, 10 other suspect registries, tomorrow you have some great fintech products coming in. Banks would love to consume one and more. Now you cannot have bespoke integrations going on for each of them all the time, because that takes up a lot of bandwidth. You have to go for approvals, InfoSec, the entire hog, right? So the question is, how can you reduce it? How can you encapsulate all of that and build a single highway on top of which you can go on integrating various kinds of registries or frameworks, etc. It's not a simple thing to do. It needs that one time, lot of design thinking goes in, because every institution will have their own systems, legacies, processes, and that is the level at which we are operating. So, for instance, on the trade side, on the supply chain side, I'm just taking a quick detour, but to tell you the challenge that comes in, we are building India's first universal repository for invoice fingerprinting and verification, which will, and that again mitigates fraud risks, right? Now, there's no structured data out there. So we are actually going with each bank and standardizing data protocols, right? Now that needs a lot of groundwork, but once you do it, after that it's a quick API plugin and scale up. Similarly on the fraud side, right? There are switches, some of the switches are old. And then there are FRM models, every bank has their own institution. So how do you bring that single orchestration layer is some of the stuff we are working on. Once it gets executed, and we'll start seeing a quick uptick.
So when we talk of these aspects, saying that across the banks you will share all of this, I come to the asset side lending, because what happens is we talk of all of this collaboration that works well when we want to prevent the frauds and all from happening. But when it comes to business, these are the same people with whom we are competing. So from that perspective, Pankaj, how do you see all of these talks of bonhomie amongst the bankers and BFSI industry? How do you see? Because even the insurance industry or the mutual fund industry or the banking industry and the NBFC are all fighting for the same pie. So does collaboration really work from that perspective?
As of now, if you see, I have spoken earlier also, even the DBS does not share data with DMS. He must be aware.
I'll restrict ourselves to the industry rather than touching the regulator aspect part of it, because what regulator does or doesn't do is out of our purview, correct?
Right.
So let's restrict ourselves to the industry.
Now, what is happening within the industry also, if you see, today the collaboration is through certain fintech vendors who take the data set and give it to give us common sharing tool. But otherwise, from there are no common tools or platform available to share the data. Okay, we must be talking about Experian or tools like Sherlock, Experian, right? But apart from that, the collaboration is still highly missing over here. So internally, how do we try to contain it? By leveraging on alternate data set. And one thing we believe that same solution will not fit in for all the products. Okay, and even for the same product, there should be some tailor-made rules. So that is how we are building our internal BREs to control the frauds. Okay, but somehow collaboration has to be done, and to what I believe, it has to be pushed by regulator, because danda chahiye thoda.
Correct. So ultimately we come back to the regulatory push for all of us.
Yeah, ultimately, because today everyone is very concerned about the customer data, right? I cannot say PI data and make it at any platform unless there are some regulations around it. So we need to be cognizant of that fact. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So internal BREs he'll take care of, but for the collaboration aspect, we'll look for the guidance from the regulator for us to make it happen. Coming back to both of you, Chandan and Damodaran, you both talked of a very interesting aspect, and that was the behavioral part of it, correct? And the ethics part of it. Because these are the two things where we are trying to work on the customer mindset and trying to understand the customer psyche basis the transactions that we are looking the customers is doing with us and all. So one is the ethics. You talked of ethics, if I'm not mistaken, in your talk, and you talked of the behavioral aspect part of it. So if you could just elaborate something more on it as to what sort of solutions that you're looking for from the awareness perspective or from the monitoring perspective, because I'm sure there are many tech providers in this room, and the next session they would be taking it up on those perspective as to what sort of behavioral studies can be done or support can be provided. Please let us put out our challenge or our ask to them, which sets the ball rolling for the next panel then.
Yeah, hi. I think as far as the banking are concerned, and the NBFC or for that matter small finance bank or scheduled bank, challenges are more or less same. Product-wise, obviously NBFC will have a bit of a different on the onboarding side and payment is lesser. I think what we spoke about and he spoke about as well, NBFC, is about what is the current environment, which is Experian and private databases. And what Anish and Manish spoke about is the public infrastructure that has been created. So there's a huge change in thought process at the government level, at the regulatory level. They understand the challenges, I think, and they are working towards it. And that's where all the institutions are coming in. I mean, we have to look forward, and we understand. I mean, we are learning from the challenges. There's a collaboration. Coming to the 2 points on the behavior aspect and the ethics aspect. Ethics, as you spoke about, we can't share the complete data, but the risk component. I think that's what Anish spoke about. That's where the ethics on the part of the consumers of the data. On the customer side, I already covered. I will not touch that. On the behavior aspect, as we spoke about, that nowadays all the frauds about hacking into the people's mind. What we need is data. Very simple. Now, data in 2 parts. What is we have internally, what we can provide as a collaboration, as an industry. And that's a big challenge, as Anish has covered. It's about standardization. We are also facing a legacy issue. We have legacy system, legacy databases. We have to integrate, create a standardization. It's a big challenge. Very easy to cover it in 2 words, but it's not so easy. It's a very big challenge, trust me. Now, that's where, and I think one part is we expect something from outside that industry should provide. Trust me, from my experience, we have enough data and information that either we are not capturing internally, or if we have, we are not deriving meaning out of it to consume it as an intelligence. And in all this process and doing it on real time via the API integration and doing everything as he spoke about the Sindoor, it's not about only 3 platforms. Trust me, ISRO was there, the DRDO was there. And I was listening to one defense guy, they have integrated the legacy 1970s, 80s anti-aircraft guns into the AI system. That's the level of integration. And the power is not about new technology, probably there's there, but what was key was the speed and the data. And that's where we are lacking. I think we have to work both sides. It's not about regulatory only. It's not about somebody's not doing. We have to start consuming the data, create a profile, as my colleague stated, and that's where we can not only stop at the entry gate, that is the onboarding of customer or identification as a KYC. It's not documentation, it's about profiling of the full thing. And at the same time, the life cycle management that we do of our own customer. I think data farming is something which is key. Data needs to be taken care of.
So data farming is the key. Damodaran, some last thoughts before we run out of time.
Yeah, 2 things. One, we talked about data on onboarding, whether the customer profiling can be done right. There are challenges, yes. But at the same time, when it comes to transaction data, it is already residing in your systems. Where he is doing, what is the amount, what is the pattern, from what location, all those kinds. Banks are already doing that. All those kinds of data is already with you. We should leverage on such data. For that, we need, say, powerful AI-based tools, because you cannot have on a T+1 basis. You need to block a transaction real time, and you also need to integrate your channels with this again. Because when a genuine transaction is getting blocked, say in UPI, if you are standing in between and verifying a transaction, blocking a transaction, you need to immediately integrate through IVR or WhatsApp banking or whatever it may be. Channels you need to reach out the customer then and there, is it not? Banks are doing, some banks actually are doing that, it seems. So you need to put these tools in that, in between the transaction. The tool should be very powerful, and then integration with these channels also is required, so that the customer can reinitiate the transaction if we find that it is genuine transaction. And all these things should be learned and brought back into your use cases. Your rules you are deploying, for that you need machine learning. Both rule-based and machine learning solutions will have to be there, because machine learning, all these kind of things on agile basis, machine learning will do, whereas from industry level and all, whatever information you are getting, you should be able to integrate that. And again, just one more point, where we again, what I would call for as a banker, thinking aloud, whether it is possible or not, I am not sure. We need more systemic support. Say, just thinking as a out of the box. Say, what about, say, having some integration, API integration to call certain specific things related to mobile? If you have that integration with mobile, I'm not talking about call data recording and those things, we have strong rules to prevent that. But at the same time, say like how long that mobile is being used by. At the time of onboarding itself, if you can check the mobile that they are giving, how long it has been with the person.
So,
whether it is getting...
I'll have to just cut you short because the timer tells me that we've run out of time, but couldn't have been better than this start for the India Fraud Risk Management 2025 Summit, where the bankers have talked of all their problems, have talked of all their challenges, and have talked of the solutions also that they are looking for. Expect the tech service providers and all, and some of the partners over there, I can see it, DronaPay, Bureau, 𝐏𝐚𝐲𝐬𝐿, Experian, Clarify, TransUnion, and all of them to work on some of the solutions to the challenges that the bankers have posed to you all. Some of them have very brilliantly, summarized it: awareness, behavioral biometrics, collaboration, execution. Guys, the question paper is leaked all over to you as the next panels and as the next discussions come forth. By end of the day, this audience should go back with solutions in their head and with specific solutions is what I would say, not generic discussions. Thank you very much, panel, for enlightening the audience on the problems and the possible solutions. I know there is a lot that one could have, kept discussing on, but time is of the essence. We can continue doing these discussions with the audience or a cup of tea, coffee in the breaks and all. They are all there through the day today. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we just take one quick question if anybody has? Anybody has, if one quick question.
One quick question.
We just have one quick
She's
question
gracious.
from there. Can we have the mic pass on? Quickly, only one, and the industry leaders are here with us, so you can always come and discuss with them.
Hello. Hello. This is Mithil Garekar from BOB Capital Markets Limited. My question to the panel is, we talked about proactive measures, protections, after damage measures, like all that. But can a general communication, like, there are customers of the banks, NBFCs. So can we have a communication, like once the fraud happens, you know the fraudster and you have all the details. I don't know whether it is happening with the banking industry. So my question is to the panel, whether that general communication goes that this is the name of the fraudster, this is the, the all information, this is the PAN number, this is the, and be aware of, from this person. So is that happening or not?
Yeah, so there's already a forum created in terms of I4C, wherein, say, for example, a fraud has happened, you as a victim would have registered your complaint on 1930. That is the forum, or that is the common repository which is getting created for all these suspicious guys. Any of the frauds which are reported by the banks to the regulator also, these common details of all these fraudsters and all go and sit into that suspicious registry of I4C. I4C makes this registry available to all the banks. How the banks integrate that registry into their, not only banks, I'm talking of BFSI, banking and financial service industry. How do they integrate in their systems and processes is where today the banks are. Have they done it on a real-time online integration, or are they doing it on a reactive basis, on a day-end basis, is where there is a different level of maturity curves. If I open it up to the panel, they would say that, yes, we've already done it. Some would say that we are in the process of doing it. So yes, solution is there. That is what is happening from the regulatory side or from the law enforcement agency side.
Second quick question is, like, if that I4C, like, the list is already with the all banks and they are using it. If such a fraudster comes to open an account with any other bank, so does, like, in how SEBI does it, like in stockbroking, basically they issue a circular, like these are the so-and-so persons and, these are prohibited from the transactions. So every broker has to take a action. They have to freeze the accounts if the accounts are open, and if through KYC they try to open an account, it comes in a red flag list, so that account doesn't get open, basically.
So yes, the solutions are provided in terms of, because there's suspicious registry. I'll leave it at that, because there's nuances over there. A confirmed fraudster is a different blacklist. But the suspicious registry is because, say, for example, if you by mistake transferred some money to my account and then go and complain to 1930 saying that by mistake this money has gone to Ashish Chandak's account, do I get into that suspicious registry? The point being, the bankers are red flagged about these accounts or these people. They are expected to enhance due diligence, opening accounts of such sort of entities on any of the areas in the BFSI space.
So I believe, like...
so EDD happens, enhanced due diligence happens, so that thing gets stopped over there and doesn't perpetrate further.
Okay. So I think my suggestion would be, like, RBI should issue a circular, like, SEBI is issuing, like, to freeze the accounts if there is a confirmed fraudsters. So I think it will be...
RBI has given enough directions to that effect to the
I think
bankers.
Yeah, Manish, let me quickly address.
Yeah.
So your comprehension is right. Regulator has already issued a circular. Okay. For the part of the suspect registry, the banks are expected to do three things. Okay. One, they have to ensure that the no incremental payment goes to these particular fraudsters. That's where the FRM on a real-time system comes in. Second, they have to deduplication to the entire internal database and see there are no linked account, not only for that particular person, but any of the demographics there, it should not exist. That is put on the temporary suspension and an enhanced due diligence happens. Third, this is being part of the deduplication base at the time of account opening. So that's where you cover all three aspects, and a circular from the regulator is already in place to this effect, and this is further getting comprehended and at a much larger scale level.
Thank you, sir, for the clarification.
Fabulous,
Third,
fabulous.
last question for the damage thing. Basically,
think,
lot of people losing their money because of these frauds. So, will there be any chance, like when they report it, like generally recovery doesn't happen. So, will there be any regulation will come, like under they will be able to claim, like for example, by way of insurance or something
There's
like
already
that?
a regulation to that effect, Customers Liability Limitation 2017 RBI circular. So to that extent, be rest assured, if there are such sort of challenges and you've reported it in the time limits provided and all, you do get those compensations and all. How do the banks manage it? Whether insurance is there, not there, is there lookout? But it has to be proven that it is the problem which has happened at the bank side and not compromised from the customer end side. I guess with that, we'll just...
Yeah, we'll
come
conclude
to
that,
a
please.
end.
Yeah, we'll conclude that. Can we have a huge round of applause for such a captivating session out here? And I'll also like to call upon Mr. Chandak Snehare, Fraud and Digital Onboarding Business Head at TransUnion India, to kindly felicitate our fabulous panelists out here. Well, it's clear that combating payment fraud requires a multi-phase approach, of course, combining advanced technology, strategic collaboration, and continuous vigilance. Let's get going. Can we have the mementos on the stage, please? First and foremost, I'll request Mr. Manish Agrawal to kindly come forward and accept the memento. Well, thank you, sir. Fabulous inputs from your end. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Next, I'll call upon Mr. Anish Chowdhary to accept the memento from us. Once again, great inputs and great insights. A great session. Can we have a huge round of applause? I request Mr. Anita Kulshrestha to kindly come forward and accept the memento. Once again, great session and the opening was fabulous, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll request Mr. Chandan to accept the memento from us. Great strategies discussed on this stage today. I'll request Damodaran Chambath to kindly come forward. Thank you once again, sir. Fabulous. Also, I'll request Pankaj Mohta, Head Fraud Risk Prevention from SMFG India. And of course, how could we do a fabulous set of questions? And we would like to felicitate Mr. Ashish, Chandak, industry speaker. Thank you, sir. Great session. And I also request everybody to please come forward for a group picture. As we move forward, let us just remain committed to strengthen the defenses and fostering a secure digital payment ecosystem. On that note, we conclude this panel discussion today.